I never thought family could make me feel like property, until they demanded the one thing I worked my entire life for. Let me back up. My name's Claire. I'm 28 now, but this story takes me back a couple of years, right after I bought my first home. And let me tell you, this wasn't handed to me. Nobody helped me with down payments. Nobody gave me shortcuts. I worked two jobs all through college, pulled all-nighters, skipped vacations, and basically lived on coffee and stubbornness until I could finally save enough for a decent place. When I signed those papers, when I held those keys, I felt unstoppable. It was like every late night shift, every time I said no to fun so I could grind harder, it all paid off. And honestly, I thought my family was proud of me too. My parents smiled when I gave them the tour, my relatives said I was an inspiration, and for once, I felt like maybe I had proven myself. But that pride didn't last long. See, my older brother Mark had always been, let's just say, the golden child, who somehow never actually earned the shine. He was in his early 30s, unemployed more often than not, living paycheck to paycheck, or rather living on other people's paychecks. His wife Katie had two kids with him, and they were always struggling. And by struggling, I don't mean they couldn't afford groceries. I mean they had the latest iPhones, ordered takeout 4 nights a week, and somehow still complained about money like it was oxygen they couldn't find. I should have known Mark was up to something, because at the first family dinner after I moved into my house, he didn't even congratulate me. He just smirked, looked around and said, "Wow, Claire, you don't even need all this space. You're single, no kids. What do you do with all these rooms?" I laughed it off, thinking he was teasing, but then he added, "Maybe you should let us move in. I mean, we're cramped with the kids, and you've got all this empty space. Seems fair, right?" I froze, thinking, wait, what? Surely this was a joke. Nobody in their right mind would seriously suggest that. But then my parents chuckled nervously and said, "Well, it's not the worst idea. Mark does have a family, and family should help each other." That was the first moment I felt my stomach drop, because it wasn't just Mark's audacity. It was my parents actually entertaining it. I brushed it off, made a joke about needing space for my future dogs, and we moved on. But inside, I felt this weird, unsettled knot forming in my chest. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself they wouldn't really push it. But what I didn't realize that night was that this was just the beginning. That one little joke at dinner. It was actually the opening move in a plan that would spiral so far out of control, it nearly cost me the very thing I had sacrificed everything for. And here's the thing about entitlement. It doesn't come out screaming at first. It whispers. It pretends to be reasonable, and then before you know it, it's pounding on your front door, demanding to take over your life. At that dinner table, I thought I had brushed it off. But that was the moment the battle for my house and my independence officially began. After that dinner, I tried to shake it off. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe Mark was just being Mark. Always dramatic, always pushing boundaries, but never really serious. But I was wrong. A week later, I got a text from my mom. "Sweetheart, can you make dinner for Sunday? Everyone wants to see the house again." I thought nothing of it until everyone showed up, not with a bottle of wine or dessert, but with measuring tape. I kid you not. My brother, his wife, and even my parents started walking through my house like realtors. Katie opened closet doors, muttering, "Oh, this would be perfect for the kids' clothes." My dad paced the living room saying, "If we knock out this wall, it'll feel more open for a family." And my brother? He actually sat down on my couch, spread out and said, "Yeah, I can see us living here. It just makes sense, Claire. You don't need all this." I stood there frozen, gripping a plate of appetizers like it was a shield. My voice was shaking when I finally asked, "Wait, are you serious right now?" Mark grinned. "Of course. Look, you've got 3 bedrooms, and you're one person. We've got 4 people crammed into a 2-bedroom. It's common sense. Family helps family." And then Katie jumped in, sweet as poison. "You wouldn't want your niece and nephew to grow up without enough space, would you? You've got this big, beautiful home, and honestly, Claire, you'll probably meet someone and move eventually. Why not let us settle here in the meantime?" I laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. "This is my house. I bought it. You don't just move in." But here's where it got really twisted. My mom, my own mother, looked at me and said, "Honey, maybe you should think about it. You're young, and Mark's kids need stability. You'll always land on your feet, but they're struggling." My jaw dropped. "Are you kidding me? You want me to just give them my house?" And that's when Mark said it. The words that made my blood run cold. "Not give. Just transfer it. You can always get another house someday. You're good with money. We're not. You owe it to us. We're family." The room fell silent. My heart pounded in my ears. Transfer it? They weren't talking about crashing on my couch for a few months. They weren't talking about temporary help. They were talking about taking my house. I told them to leave. Flat out. I said, "This is insane. Get out." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. Katie scoffed like I just insulted her. "Wow, so selfish. You'd rather let children suffer than share a roof? What happened to family first?" And then my mom had the audacity to say, "Claire, you're overreacting. We'll talk about this again when you've calmed down." When they finally left, I locked the door behind them and just stood there in my living room, staring at the walls I'd painted myself, the furniture I'd saved up for, the mortgage statement with my name on it. My sanctuary suddenly felt under siege. But here's the part that really got me. That night when I checked my email, there it was, a message from my mom. The subject line read, "Housing solution for the family." Inside, attached documents. Legal transfer paperwork. My own mother had already contacted a lawyer drafting up documents to sign my house over to Mark and Katie. That was the moment the air went out of my lungs. This wasn't just entitlement, this was war. When I opened that email with the legal documents, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a joke, it wasn't a passing comment. My mom had literally started the process to transfer my house to my brother. I didn't even know what to say. I called her right away, my voice shaking. "What the hell is this?" She sounded calm. Too calm. "Honey, don't get upset. It's just paperwork. We're exploring options for what's best for the family." "The family?" I snapped. "What about me? I worked 2 jobs all through college to save for this house. This is my life, not some hand-me-down toy for Mark to take." Her tone hardened. "Claire, you're being selfish. Mark has children. You're single. You'll be fine. A good daughter helps her family." That was betrayal number 1. The next betrayal came a few days later. I came home from work and found a strange car parked in my driveway. When I walked inside, Mark was there, with his buddy, a realtor. They were walking through my home, making notes, discussing the property value. I swear my vision went red. "Get out, both of you," I shouted. The realtor looked startled, but Mark just smirked. "Relax, Claire. We're just checking things out. You'll thank me later when this is official." I told them I'd call the cops, and that finally got them out the door. But Mark didn't leave quietly. As he passed me, he leaned in and whispered, "You can fight it all you want, but Mom and Dad are on my side. You'll fold eventually." And you know what? I could feel him believing that. That night, I sat in my bedroom, shaking. My house suddenly felt like it wasn't mine anymore, like vultures were circling, waiting for me to give in. But it got worse. Oh, it got so much worse. The very next week, my mom called again, this time with my dad on speaker. "Claire, we've been talking, and we really think you should rent a small apartment nearby. Just for now, Mark needs the house more than you do. You're young, you can start over." I was stunned. "Do you even hear yourselves? You're asking me to throw away everything I've worked for just so Mark doesn't have to grow up and take responsibility for himself?" My dad sighed. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Don't be stubborn. Family sticks together." Click. I hung up. And that's when the paranoia started creeping in. I started noticing little things. My spare house keys, the ones I kept in a drawer by the door, gone. The drawer was empty. I tore my place apart, but they were nowhere. My gut told me exactly who had taken them. The final straw that week? I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Mark had forgotten to hang up during a phone call. I caught him bragging to Katie. "She'll fold. She always does. Give it another month and we'll be moving in. This house is ours." I sat there listening, my hands trembling, rage boiling in my chest. This wasn't just entitlement anymore. This was invasion. My own family was plotting to strip me of my home, my independence, my sanity. And I knew if I didn't fight back soon, I really would lose everything. After hearing my brother brag about stealing my house, something in me snapped. For weeks, I had been the quiet, dutiful daughter, shocked, confused, clinging to the hope that my parents would come to their senses. But that phone call flipped a switch. If they wanted a war over my home, I was going to give them one. I started small. Anytime my parents called, I recorded the conversations. Whenever they said things like "don't be selfish," or "it's better for the family," I stored it. I wanted a record of every guilt trip, every manipulation, every veiled threat. Then, I went deeper. The next time Mark came over uninvited, I left my phone recording in the kitchen. Sure enough, he started running his mouth, telling Katie on speakerphone how he couldn't wait to redecorate his new living room, my house, my walls, my furniture. I nearly broke the phone in my hand, trying not to scream, but instead, I let it play. And just when I thought it couldn't get uglier, it did. I walked into my parents' house one Sunday, trying against all logic to keep things civil, and I overheard my mom talking to Mark in the next room. Her exact words? "Don't worry, she'll crack. We raised her to put family first. She won't fight us when it comes down to it." My heart turned to ice. My own mother was counting on my obedience, on me being weak. That night, I broke down in tears, the kind of ugly, shaking sobs that come when you realize the people who raised you don't see you as a daughter anymore, they see you as a resource, a possession. But then, just as quickly, the tears dried. I looked around my house, the photos I hung, the paint colors I chose, the couch I nearly threw my back out moving in. Every inch of it screamed mine. And I decided, they were wrong about me. I wasn't going to fold. I bought security cameras the next morning, installed them inside and outside the house. I even put one right above the front door, where I knew Mark would see it if he tried sneaking in. Let him sweat. A few nights later, my paranoia proved right. At around midnight, I got a motion alert on my phone. Heart pounding, I opened the app. There he was, Mark, standing at my door with a duffel bag in hand, fumbling with the lock like he expected to walk in. And then he looked up, saw the camera, and froze. I swear the satisfaction I felt in that moment could have lit up the whole neighborhood. But I didn't call the cops, not yet. Instead, I waited, watched. Mark cursed under his breath, shoved his bag back into his car, and drove off. That was when I knew this wasn't just about entitlement anymore. Mark was gearing up to take what he wanted, by force if necessary. And my parents? They were helping him? The tension was suffocating. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I jumped every time my phone buzzed, but under that fear was something else building. A cold, sharp determination. Because if Mark thought I was going to roll over and let him steal the only thing I had worked my entire life for, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. After catching Mark trying to sneak into my house at midnight, I thought maybe, just maybe, the cameras would scare him off. I was wrong. The very next morning, I woke up to a flood of texts from cousins and even distant relatives. Messages like, "Why are you being cruel to Mark's kids? And you're seriously letting your brother's family suffer while you live alone in a 4-bedroom house?" My stomach dropped. Mark had done it. He went public. And not just public, but with a twisted story where I was the villain. According to him, I had promised him the house. Promised. He told everyone that I backed out at the last second because I was spiteful and selfish. The audacity. I called my mom, shaking with rage. Instead of denying it, she sighed and said, "Claire, people are only upset because they don't understand. Why don't you just let Mark stay there for a while until things cool down?" I nearly dropped the phone. Until things cool down? This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an ambush. My family was rewriting the narrative, and I was the villain in everyone's eyes. And then came the worst part. That evening, I went to grab my spare keys from the drawer where I always kept them, and they were gone. I tore through the house, ripping apart cabinets, checking every coat pocket, every bag, even the trash. Nothing. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely hold the flashlight as I checked the garage. That's when it hit me. Mark must have stolen them. The last time he visited, he'd been alone in the kitchen for a while. He must have pocketed them then. The fear was real now. It wasn't just about rumors or manipulation anymore. My brother had physical access to my home. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house made me bolt upright. I even sat with a baseball bat by the door, heart pounding, waiting for the sound of a key in the lock. And then, just as dawn was breaking, my phone buzzed with another motion alert from the security camera. I opened it, expecting to see a delivery truck, or maybe a raccoon. But no, it was Mark's car, parked right in my driveway. And he wasn't alone. His wife and kids were in the back, half asleep, bags piled in the trunk. He was planning to move in, just like that, without permission, without warning, like the house had already been handed to him on a silver platter. I froze, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I wanted to storm outside and scream, but something told me to wait. Mark stepped out of the car, tried the front door, then cursed when the new locks didn't budge. He stomped back to the car, yelling at his wife, "She'll cave. Just watch. She's too soft to actually fight this." Too soft. That's what my own brother thought of me. I watched the camera feed as they drove away, leaving skid marks on my driveway. And in that moment, everything inside me hardened. The fear, gone. The guilt? All that was left was rage and a cold, burning clarity. If my brother thought he could bully me, manipulate me, and flat out steal from me, then he was about to find out just how strong I could be when pushed to the edge. This was no longer about family. This was survival. And I was done playing nice. I'd reached my breaking point, but this time I wasn't going to sit back and wait for my brother to make the next move. The very next day, I called my parents and Mark, telling them I wanted to talk things through as a family. They jumped at the chance, probably thinking I was ready to fold and hand him the house. But they had no idea what was waiting for them. Before they arrived, I made sure the cameras were rolling, every lock was changed, and my laptop was hooked up to the TV. I had everything lined up, recordings, screenshots, texts, the works. When they walked in, my mom immediately started with her guilt-trip voice. "Claire, honey, you know this house is too big for you. It would mean so much if you helped your brother out." And Mark, arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won, said, "Let's not drag this out. Just give me the keys and we can all move on." That smugness nearly made me snap right there. But instead, I clicked the remote. The TV lit up with footage from my security cameras. Mark standing on my porch in the middle of the night, trying to get in with my stolen keys. His face dropped. Then I played the audio recording I'd saved of him bragging to his wife, "Don't worry, she'll cave. That house will be ours by the end of the month." My dad shifted uncomfortably. My mom's jaw dropped. "But Mark?" He exploded. "Are you seriously spying on me? You're insane," he shouted, pointing at me like I was the criminal. I didn't flinch. "No, Mark. What's insane is you stealing from me and trying to squat in my house with your entire family. That's called breaking and entering." He went red, but before he could cut me off, I hit them with the final blow. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared and slammed it on the table. "This," I said, "is the statement from my lawyer. The next time you step foot on this property without my permission, it won't just be family drama. It'll be trespassing charges. And trust me, the cops will have a field day with this evidence." For the first time, Mark had nothing to say. His mouth opened, then shut, his face pale with fury. But I wasn't done. I turned to my parents. And you, both of you. You've been siding with him, calling me selfish, even helping spread his lies. Do you realize you were backing someone who was literally trying to steal my home out from under me? My home, that I worked my whole life for. My mom tried to cry. My dad muttered something about family sticking together, but I cut them off cold. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't gaslight you into giving up everything you've worked for. You've shown me exactly where I stand, and it's not with you. The room went silent. Mark finally snapped, slamming his fists on the table. You're going to regret this, Claire. You think you can embarrass me like this and get away with it? I stood up, staring him down. My voice was steady but ice cold. No, Mark. The only one regretting anything is you for underestimating me. He stormed out, cursing under his breath, his wife trailing behind, looking embarrassed. My parents stayed seated, wide-eyed, like they didn't recognize the daughter in front of them. But I didn't care anymore. For once, I felt in control. This was my house, my life, my boundaries. And no one, not even blood, was going to cross me again. When the door slammed shut behind Mark, the silence in the room was deafening. My parents sat there, still trying to process that the child they thought they could manipulate had just stood her ground. For a second, I almost felt pity, but then I remembered every word they'd said to me. You don't need that house. You're single. Mark deserves it more. He has a family. Stop being selfish, Claire. Every memory burned like fire in my chest. I walked over to the door, opened it wide, and looked at my parents. You should leave too. My mom's eyes brimmed with tears. Claire, we're still your parents. We were just trying to keep the family together. I shook my head. No, you were trying to break me down so Mark could get his way. That's not family. That's betrayal. They hesitated, but eventually stood up and shuffled out, the weight of their guilt trailing behind them like a shadow. The second the door closed, I locked it, this time knowing those locks were mine and mine alone. I leaned against the wall, shaking with adrenaline. For years, I'd been the quiet one, the good daughter who never said no. Tonight, that version of me was gone. But the story didn't end there. The fallout hit fast. Mark tried rallying extended family to his side, telling them I'd turned against blood. But before he could spin his narrative too far, I dropped the bomb in the family group chat. Screenshots, audio clips, even security footage. Every cousin, aunt, and uncle saw the truth. And instead of me being the villain, Mark became the pariah. One cousin messaged me privately. Claire, I'm so sorry. We had no idea how far he went. Good for you for standing up to him. For the first time, the support outweighed the guilt tripping. But I wasn't done reclaiming my power. The very next week, I met with my lawyer again, not just to protect my house, but to update my will. And this time, I made sure every detail was airtight. If anything ever happened to me, my home would be donated to a women's shelter. Not to Mark, not to my parents, not to anyone who thought they could take it from me. That decision felt like the final nail in the coffin of their entitlement. When my parents found out, they begged to meet. They wanted forgiveness. They wanted to move forward. But I told them plainly, I'll never hate you, but I'll never let you control me again. If you can't accept boundaries, then you don't get a place in my life. And for once, they had no response. The empowerment didn't just come from keeping my house, it came from realizing I didn't need their approval, their permission, or their fake version of family. I stood in my living room, looking around at the walls I had painted, the furniture I had chosen, the mortgage I had paid off myself. Everything in that house was mine because I earned it. And as I turned off the lights that night, I whispered to myself, they thought they could take away my home, but all they did was show me who really belonged in it. And the answer was me. That's when it finally clicked. Family isn't about blood. Family is about loyalty, respect, and love. And my family? Well, they lost that the moment they tried to steal from me.